Joining us now, NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen, PBS NewsHour co-host and MSNBC contributor Amna Nawaz, and Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst Susan Del Percio. Jonathan, starting with you on this, now that we're seeing he's getting back on the road, he is going to be in Wisconsin. Business as usual, certainly this week, has not been business as usual.
Yeah, this has been the worst week in a presidential campaign that I can remember in my lifetime. Not only did he have the debate debacle, but the effort to clean it up has been miserable at best. You hear the arguments for why he didn't do well at the debate, that he had a cold, that he was traveling in Europe. He'd been back in the United States for 12 days. I don't think any American thinks that they want a president that is home for 12 days from a foreign trip and still not quite himself from the jet lag. So, the White House messaging has been difficult. And indeed, yesterday, as you pointed out, at one moment, Karine Jean-Pierre said he hadn't been checked out by a doctor. Then Biden said he had been checked out by a doctor. One of those things is true. One of them is not. Right now, his White House has a credibility problem. He has a credibility problem. And they need to make sure that whatever they're saying is actually true and transparent. He is going to try over the course of the next several days to show a different version of himself than people have been seeing over the last week. But he is make no mistake, this is a crisis moment for the president and his party.
And his party is reacting, Amna. From your sense of your sources and what you're hearing, we just had Raul Grijalva, the second member of Congress, to come out and say, step aside. Are your sources telling you, are you hearing that we might get more actually over this weekend?
Well, Richard, I think that remains to be seen. One thing is clear. We are now a week out from that debate performance that everyone agrees was not President Joe Biden's best moment by any stretch. And the concern that kicked off among Democrats has been sustained. And now that we've had a number of two lawmakers from his own party coming forward, publicly calling for the president to step aside, that is conversation that is trending the wrong direction. And that's something the White House, the campaign clearly see and are taking note of. I will point out, I spoke with Congressman Lloyd Doggett last night, who was, as you noted, the first to come forward from within the party and ask Mr. Biden to step aside. And he also underscored this idea that it wasn't just about the 90 minutes on that stage last week. For him, he said there's been concern looking at the numbers over the last year. Those are numbers that have not largely budged. We know voters have really been locked in terms of who they're supporting for almost a year now. It's been a tight race, and Mr. Biden has been slipping in some key battleground states in particular. He wanted to underscore that was what's feeding his concern, and he said that concern is widespread among other Democrats as well. When I asked him why we haven't heard more people come out publicly to share it then, he said, look, not every Democrat feels as well positioned as he is. Mm-hmm. He himself is 77 years old. He's later in his career. He said younger Democrats who may be in vulnerable positions this fall don't feel as emboldened. I'll also point out I've talked to Democratic lawmakers who want to stress Biden is their guy. This conversation they feel is divisive and is undermining him. And they say if the Republicans can get behind their candidate, it's time for Democrats to do the same. They worry the longer this goes on, not only is it not enough time for a new candidate to introduce him or herself to the country, it also further emboldens the man that they say that they are focused on beating, and that is Donald Trump.
You know, Susan, as Amna intimates here, down ballot, what this might mean for younger Democrats, also for Republicans. This week's polling show that now congressional candidates are now in advance. They're ahead in the polling in terms of preferences of voters by not, double digits, but we still are seeing that they are now ahead of the Democratic congressional candidates. What does that mean for the race down ballot?
Well, I think that the Democrats have a message to put out there. Even if Joe Biden stays in the race, there's a good chance that Donald Trump could win. And if the Republicans are going to take over the Senate, the House is the last force that can potentially stop Donald Trump. So I understand why the Democrats are really concerned. I'd also be concerned because where they made a lot of their inroads in 2022 were in blue states where turnout is generally lower in off years. They're relying on a huge presidential turnout to get that Democratic vote up and get their candidates elected. And Biden is not necessarily the person who's going to bring that enthusiasm to the race. And what I've seen lately is the issue of his seeing a doctor or not after the debate. I think that is the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, because that's something the American public really doesn't want to see in their president. It's one thing to say, okay, he had a cold, but to look like you're trying to hide your medical records. And after that performance, it wasn't the debate. It wasn't 90 minutes. It was what Americans thought all along, what they've seen all along with Donald Trump, with Joe Biden, that he's too old, that he doesn't look that great. This debate confirmed that, and the crisis management afterwards was just horrible.
To be a fly on the wall on that, Jonathan, and the first move, it appears, is to appeal to black voters. How does that fit into the strategy, you think?
Well, it's very important, Richard. I mean, for Joe Biden or any other Democrat to win the presidency, they're going to have strong turnout among black voters. We've already seen Donald Trump trying to make inroads, particularly with younger and male African Americans, young black men. And so that's a group that he absolutely needs. It's also a group in terms of black voters that may see Kamala Harris as a better alternative than some of the other Democrats do. And so, I mean, it's a constituency that is of utmost importance for Biden, not only if he's taking on Trump, but in order to kind of maintain his balance within the Democratic Party right now. So that's not surprising to me that that's the first place he reaches out. That's the core group that he needs. And by the way, if he has black voters who are the most likely to show up for Democratic candidates in presidential elections, it will make it a lot tougher for other Democrats to try to push him out of the role that he has now.
Amna, from your reporting, how much longer does the campaign have on the Joe Biden side to right the ship here? In the last hour, we were talking, and it came down to about a week, was what one particular strategist had said. Is it about one more week from what you're hearing your reporting?
Regardless of which side of the debate they fall on right now, every Democratic lawmaker I've spoken to agrees on one thing, that the next few days in particular are going to be crucial. Lloyd Doggett said to me last night, this is something that has to be resolved in just the next days. We know the president has a key interview on Friday. He's campaigning over the weekend. There's the NATO summit next week. And I think what everyone seems to agree on is that for the president to calm those concerns right now, he needs to be seen in more unscripted moments, more interviews, taking questions in a town hall format, speaking directly to voters. Those are the kinds of moments people seem to think could turn this moment around if it can be.
Susan, if this ABC interview that's airing tomorrow is not a winner, is this it for Joe Biden?
Well, only Joe Biden is actually going to determine that. And I think what the final thing is the poll numbers that come out next week. It's been a holiday week, so the polling's been pretty spotty. I want to see what swing states show. That's what all the Democrats are going to look towards, especially the congressional ones. So, yes, it's every moment that Joe Biden is in front of a camera is a make or break moment. There's no room for any error, and it must have an excellent performance every single time.
I think his campaign is reading your mind, because that's why they're going to Wisconsin. Thank you so much, Susan Del Percio, Jonathan Allen, Amna Nawaz. Really appreciate your time.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.